On this edition of Right and Exact, Bashan Farad speaks with world-renowned author and lecturer Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu about the plight of young black men and young black women, a subject that he has lectured on for over 3 decades.
Dr. Kunjufu, given what we've seen over the past 5 years, I would say, with the recent killings of black men, or the recent unjust killings of black men by police officers, should we still be countering the conspiracy to destroy black boys, as you said, over 30 years ago? And if so, why?
Well, unfortunately, the conspiracy continues. And one of my frustrations is that even with video cam, even with video footage of police officers violently killing our people, unfortunately, trying to secure justice in the courts, they keep using the position that the policeman was fearful of his life. And they use that, and they've used it so many times, especially with in court with jurors, where they've been able to win. So our success, our efficacy winning those cases is less than 20%. And that's with full footage of what took place. But as you know, this conspiracy goes beyond police brutality. I mean, if we just look at the homicide in my hometown, Chicago, where almost every year we're close to 1,000 black males killed by black males. But the conspiracy goes beyond that. I mean, the large numbers of black boys who are placed in special education. I mean, we're 17% of the students, but we're 41% of the special ed children. And if a black child is placed in special ed, 80% are black male children. In most cities like Baltimore, Washington, Detroit, Chicago, our graduation rate is only 50%. So there's some real challenges. So what does a black male do in his current economy with a criminal record and less than a high school diploma? How economically competitive is this young man going to be? What are his economic options? He has a record, illiterate. I mean, only 12% of black boys are proficient in reading by 8th grade. The richest country in the world, for some reason, can't teach 88% of black males how to read.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming out tonight. Welcome to Cues on the Move. My name is Matt Stevens, and I am the representative for Corridor 4 in the mentoring committee. I have two of my best friends with me tonight, David Miller and Rory T. Edwards. We're going to be talking about reading for Black children in particular, as we look at the impact it has had, and is having on our community. Brothers, the gentleman that we just had heard from, Jawanza Kunjufu, we've all read his books. We read them about 30 years ago. I believe he wrote The Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, and then he came back with The Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys 2. It's been about 30 years. Some things have changed, but some things have stayed the same and sadly gotten worse. So I wanted to give you guys an opportunity tonight, because you are both authors, scholars, and activists in your communities, to have a good conversation, because the Omega Psi Phi fraternity is interested in increasing literacy for young people, and particularly for our Black boys. So David Miller, I'll start out with you. Welcome, brother, and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you think about what Jawanza Kunjufu was talking about.
So thank you, Matt Stevens, and I want to thank your fraternity, Omega Psi Phi, for allowing me to be part of this critical conversation. I also want to thank you and your fraternity for your advocacy and outreach. I've been fortunate enough to do a bunch of projects with you distinguished gentlemen across the country, particularly around literacy. My story is very, very simple. Reading saved my life. I grew up in the great city of Baltimore, Maryland. I am a son of the west side of Baltimore, and reading literally saved my life. I was introduced to the autobiography of Malcolm X, which was a very critical text, in my life, and really helped me understand, the power of reading and writing. I didn't do well in school. Even when I was in high school, I would actually cut school and go to the library, because at some point, once I got a hold of that autobiography of Malcolm X, I realized that the stuff that they were teaching me in school was a joke, and that if I wanted to kind of further my knowledge base, then I needed to go to the library. So me and a couple friends, we would literally cut school, man, and go to the library to read, because once we got connected to the knowledge, we were real thirsty and hungry. And so again, shouts out to our elder, Jawanza Kanjufu, for laying that groundwork over 30 years ago. And I'll say this, and I know you want to go to Rory Edwards, that I think reading and writing and literacy is the new civil rights issue that we must come to grips with. That when you look at particularly reading and writing as it relates to Black boys, we are in serious trouble when you look at both indicators through the National Assessment for Educational Progress, and some of that data that Kanjufu talked about comes from the National Assessment for Educational Progress. But then we also have to look at, roll up to a group of Black boys and ask them, what are they reading? And a lot of them will tell you they don't like to read at all. They don't like reading magazines, newspapers. And so this is a critically important issue that we must focus greater attention on.
Great. Thank you, David. Rory, coming all the way out from Las Vegas, brother, we want to thank you for making this trek and coming on the air with us. We've had a couple of conversations in the last year about the phenomenal work you're doing with student athletes. We know that the athletes are reading their playbooks. I'm not sure if they're reading as many books outside of the locker room. Wanted to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about you, what you're doing in the reading spectrum, and what your thoughts are on what Jawanza Kanjufu had to say.
Well, I want to diddle David's accolades for the Omega Psi Phi organization, and for you, Matt, to give us the opportunity to have this dialogue on this platform, because so many times I think Black men don't even want to have this conversation about the fact of reading as being something that's essential in our growth and in our development. And like David said, reading was very essential for me young, because reading gave me the opportunity to go places that I never could go, that I thought I could never go. Let me take that back, that I thought I could never go. It also gave me an opportunity to find out some of the journeys that were very similar to the one I was on. So sometimes we're in a silo and we think that we're the only ones going through what we're going through. And even though I grew up in New Britain, Connecticut, and we just recently have one of the brothers who grew up with us highlighting all of the athletes from our particular eras that had an essential part of the development of us going some places. But just being able for people to read, to people to say, I'm reading about somebody I had no idea about that did phenomenal things, gives me an opportunity. But as you say about the athletes, over the last probably 25 years, I've been working with student athletes. And one of the things that I always noticed, that when I did workshops across this country for young men, the one thing that they would always say is that I wanted to be a professional athlete or an entertainer. And so I thought that, wow, how are we going to get them to understand what that journey looks like? And with the playbook, a lot of them, you don't even hear about the story. A lot of them nowadays get cut because they can't comprehend the playbook. And so they've been socially promoted because of their talent. But then when they get to the professional ranks, it's no longer a game, it's a business. And so you have to understand that it's no longer about playing, because now you're a commodity in an organization that is driving billions and millions of dollars into not really the economy, but into someone else's growth. And so if you're unable to navigate and stay focused or stay connected in that, then we don't need you because there's so many other people out there who can fill your position. But that's one of the biggest things that people aren't talking about is why are individuals being cut? Because they can't comprehend the playbook. They can't comprehend the symbols. They can't comprehend the plays that are being called because they're coming through with a very limited literate mindset. And so when we move into the athletic perspective, we really have to concentrate on getting these brothers literate, because that's where they're failing, not on talent, it's on being literate.
Got you. Well, I'm gonna stick with you for a second as we look at my next question, which really focused on the impact that you're seeing. I know David and I are working together on a number of different projects, and we see impact directly. I'm going to ask him second, but I wanted, since I'm with you, and we're now looking at March Madness, I saw a pretty good game on just before we came on this line. What is some of the impact that you're seeing working with the young people that you are working with as it relates to helping them read and reading your book in particular?
Well, I think the one thing is what's really alarming is what I do is when I go and I share the numbers with them, because one of my books is titled "Numbers Don't Lie, People Do." And so when people ask that question, they say, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, let me just give you an example." So we'll take football, for instance. At the developmental league, there's over 2.2 million athletes who participate in developmental football. That's like Pop Warner football up until high school. And then when we go to high school, there's only 1.1 million athletes who compete on the high school level. And so when we look at that, we lost almost a million students. And we got to understand where they go. Then when we go from high school to college, there's only 72,000. And so then we leave college, we go to the NFL draft. There's only 355 individuals who are drafted. It's about 500 who end up being camp bodies and things of that nature. But when we look at the numbers, we look at how many we lose per year. We lose 1 million in the first developmental stage. We lose almost 900,000 in the second phase. And then we have about 65,000 individuals who are eligible to play in the NFL who never play in the NFL. So trying to reach these brothers at an earlier stage and to let them know what that journey looks like, and also to develop a plan. Some people say, well, a plan B. I never call it a plan B. I said, because if you have a plan B, that means your plan A was never as important as you said it was going to be. So you have a plan A plus or a plan A minus. But I think that giving them the opportunity to understand what their purpose is on this earth and use sports as an alternative is what the impact I'm trying to make. So some of the young people that I'm working with, and the numbers may sound large to people, but the numbers are very small in the whole scheme of things. It's looking at getting these brothers to understand the opportunities that are out there, and that is through reading. And so when I give them opportunities to do things, I tell them, I'll suggest to them a book. I'll suggest to them to go look at some YouTube videos of individuals who are giving them opportunities to be what they desire to be if professional athletics or college athletics is not the next phase for them. But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get to them early and let them know what this journey truly looks like and how hard it really is for you to get there. So that's what we're really looking at trying to do as far as the impact we're making.
Man, that's something else, brother, because we know that everybody's not going to make it to the pros, but
Absolutely.
everybody has an opportunity to do something with their life. And if they can't read, it's going to be an uphill battle for them. David, I know that you have finished one or two, well, it seems like you pop out a book a week. These various books that you got coming on, brother. But I've read and have worked with young people with a number of them. But I wanted to kind of ask you from an impact perspective, because you're actually seeing young people working with children with some of your children books. What impact do you think you're having with young people in reading?
So it's let me just say that I have a sort of a long history doing youth development work and working with young people. And some of the most rewarding work that I've been involved in has been focused on literacy, and there's some serious literacy champions out there. You look at the work of Dr. Alfred Tatum and Dr. Goldie Muhammad at Georgia State. But what I'm finding, Matt and Roy, and to the people that are listening, is a book can be a game changer in the life of a young person. And I'm gonna give you some examples. Last weekend, Matt, as you know, I was in Philadelphia for the Black Children's Book Festival. There were over 4,000 children and families that came out with, and they had on their masks to the Philadelphia Convention Center because they knew that there were going to be Black authors selling and giving away Black books. And see, when our children, y'all, see themselves on the covers of books, when our children can pick up a book and read a story, a positive story, an uplifting story that talks about aspects of the African American experience, I think it provides a counter narrative to what so many young folks are hearing and seeing on social media and on television. And so what I am finding is children are devouring books. Now, that's not to say that's not to say all children, because of some of the academic challenges our children are having. For example, one of my books, Khalil's Way, is a story about an 11-year-old math genius. This book was actually written for fifth grade. It's an early chapter book. I have 10th and 11th and 12th graders reading this book. And so one of the challenges that I'm finding is that children love to see themselves on the pages of books. Children and families love to get connected to books that realistically depict their story. But I think one of the challenges oftentimes is so many, particularly our boys, so many of our boys have academic deficits, particularly in the areas of reading and writing. Many times because the curriculum material and the curriculum they're involved in is not rigorous, and it also doesn't necessarily promote some of the kinds of books that I write and the books that are Jerry Craft writes, Jason Reynolds, and others. And what I'm finding is once we can get these books in the hands of young people, they are super excited. And I'm hearing from teachers, I'm hearing from parents, I'm hearing from organizational leaders that they have boys in their program that would never read. I got an email from a group, Positive Institute out of Chicago. They were telling me that the boys would never read. They would do the physical fitness things, they would do some of the life skills programming, but when it came to reading, they didn't want to read. Got a hold of Khalil's Way, wouldn't put it down. And so reading can really dramatically change a young person's perspective on life. But I think a lot of times we really got to focus on this notion around representation matters, right? We can connect them to the classics that a school district may want them to read, like a William Shakespeare or the Iliad or the Odyssey or Dante's Divine Comedy. But first, we got to introduce them to books where they see themselves on the pages of the books, and they are reading stories that encompass what their lives are like.
Oh, that is phenomenal. Rory, years ago, I started a program based upon, David actually mentored me in this area. It was a program called Books for Boys. And the target audience that I picked was Pop Warner football because the coaches had influence on the young people. It was a struggle when we first started, but when we got the coaches to realize that they had influence on these young people's lives and that they could just take 30 minutes out of the week and read and respond to the book, we actually used Khalil's Way for the boys' book, and we used a book from a sister. I'm drawing a blank on her name right now, but for the cheerleaders. And we often got the young people plugged in right there on the spot. What influence do you think football, basketball, baseball coaches have as it relates to getting their young people to read? If we step to the coaches with the right message, do you think that can increase reading?
Absolutely. I think, coaches need to realize what their role is. When I came up, my coaches were not in the win business. They were in the developmental business. They gave you an opportunity not just to shine as an athlete, but they gave you an opportunity to shine as a scholar,
Mhm.
because some of them gave you information about what the possibilities of you achieving a particular goal would be. And one thing I remember, one person told me it's much easier for you to become a scholar than it is for you to become a professional athlete.
Mhm.
He also told me that it's easier for you to become a professional person. The chances of you becoming a professional person are so much more uh, available than to become a professional athlete. Now, uh, if you look at all of the opportunities that are available connected to professional sports, then it gives you the opportunity to say, I'm still connected to the game. Some of the best coaches have been those players who may have sat at the end of the bench. The reason why is because they developed not only a strategy to be successful in the game, they understood the game. And then when you understand the game, it's easier for you to understand each and every individual's talent out there, and also what buttons to push. Right? When we came up, coaches would get in your face and scream. That doesn't work. Nowadays, it definitely doesn't work. You scream at a kid right now, they might jump off the court or run off the field and run into the bathroom, and you got to go in there and get them, and they sitting down crying in the corner because their skin is sensitive. It's a different development on how you get athletes to respond. But I think if coaches really took the time to sit down and talk to a David, talk to yourself, talk to some of the other brothers, Sean, some of the brothers that we associate with, who can help you not only in being a coach, but to be a developer of human beings, then your job could be done so much more better. And you can develop young brothers, especially, to be viable, valuable, and viable citizens. And so that's the way I look at this perspective on coaches' roles.
Man, that's heavy. That's heavy. David, is staying in the development area. You're doing a lot of work with fathers and parents in particular. You and I do some work with single mothers raising boys. I don't want to stick with the dad for a moment right now. What impact do you think fathers have on reading for their children? And if you had to give dads advice, what
Mm.
advice would you give dads as it relates to reading with children?
Well, I want to shout out our good brother Kenny Braswell, Fathers Incorporated, in the great city of Atlanta, and the work that he's doing with Real Dads Read. He's actually doing a big event April 2nd with the Atlanta Hawks and some dads, and they're going to be giving the dads um, sort of like a starter kit of books to begin to read with their children and to have their children read to them. I mean, one of the things that I think that we've gotten away from, Roy and Matt, is parents are your first teachers. And the first cat that you should see with a book in his hand is mom and dad. Not the lady at the daycare center or the Head Start Center. The first person that you should see with a book in their hand, a magazine in their hand, should be mom and dad. The first person that reads to you, when you are even in the womb, or when you are a toddler, should be mom and dad. And I just think for dads, part of the ritual, when we talk about fatherhood, part of that evening ritual should be bath and book time, right? And so you get in the bath, but then you also get in the story time. I know my children were crazy about the book time before they went to bed. I mean, Matt knows I could have just gotten off a plane, got in from LA, tired, get in time just to kiss the children, and they like, yo, what's up with the book? You know what I'm saying? Let's get this book time in when they were young. And so I think that we have to begin to institutionalize this ritual among fathers and children, that literacy is a priority. And even as they get older, you look at the term, Matt, read alouds. people think that a read aloud is just for a young child, right? My oldest daughter is 17, you're ready to go to college. There are times when I have her read to me. Like that's a read aloud because I always want her to be confident. I want her to understand the importance of fluency. And I want her to understand that even if there are words from a vocabulary standpoint that she struggles with, I want to hear her struggle with those words, even as a 17-year-old high school honor student, so that we can begin to work on the correct pronunciation of those words and then do what my mother used to always say, as I'm sure you guys heard, go to the dictionary.
Right.
Then we go to the dictionary to get the definition. But with fathers, this has to become an institutional practice and a ritual in our home.
Got you. Rory, as we look at the books that you've written, how do you think you can advise young athletes to start writing? Because you were an athlete and you picked up the pen as well as the book and started writing about your experiences. Do you think that other young athletes have these same opportunities? And how would you advise a young athlete to start writing about their experiences?
I say everyone who still is blessed to be here every day on this earth has a story. And your story you may think your story is not important, but you never know who is going to listen to you. Like David said, he's going to places and the people say, oh, these kids aren't going to read. And as soon as you give them a book, they're excited about the fact that somebody sees me. I think for young people, a lot of times we are taught that we are not seen. When you look at some of the things that are happening with the athletes, people are saying, dribble the ball and be quiet. So you're told that, shut up and be quiet. Just do what you do best and be quiet. And so when you get an opportunity to share your story, it's so very, very, very valuable. And like, this is the cover of my new book now. So I changed the book to this cover. But the thing is that what I said in my book, it's not really about sports is the underline of it, but it's really about being a professional person. And in every chapter of this book, it's a story about my life. It's really a story about me being a father, about me being an athlete, about me being an educator, about me being an activist, about me being just whatever the chapter is, it has something that's attached to my life. So you're getting a piece of my life, but you're also getting an opportunity to not only grow as an athlete and as a person, but at the end of each chapter, it has exercise for you and your family to practice. And I think to David's point, something that a father can sit down and go over with his son or with his daughter. This is an exercise that we're going to do together, because as the athlete grows, the parents have to grow. If the parents don't grow, then the athlete's stuck in the same spot as the parents are, who refuse to educate themselves.
Got you. We got 2 minutes left, brothers. And in that 2 minutes, Rory, I want to start with you. How can people get a hold of that book, and in you in particular?
My website is www.rorytedwards.com. If you don't know it, that's why I'm wearing it on the hat. rorytedwards.com, and everything, all my social media is my name. So if you go to my website, you can get it right there.
Got you. David.
So I am davidmiller.com. I am davidmiller.com. And I think my Instagram handle is on the screen at YouChangeNow. And one of the things that I would say to folks is we got to support Black authors. I mean, there's always been a cultural movement in our community supporting Black artists, Black writers, Black film. And so, really super important that we support those of us, myself, Roy, and others that are doing the work. And so you can follow me at IamDavidMiller.com. And let's really begin to look at saturating our homes with books. And for, organizational leaders, buy a classroom set of books.
Yeah.
We don't just have to do it when it's, read across America. Buy a set of books and go into a school. Buy a set of books from one of your favorite authors and go into a school and begin to pour into these young people.
Got it. So, brothers, we are just about out of time. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about this most important topic. Our District Representative Brother Kevin Ampalfo has created the Read Across the District program, and all of the brothers throughout the 2nd District are reading in the schools. We'll be reading your book, David. Now, Rory, we're going to be looking forward to reading your book as well. Brothers, I want to thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Matt Stevens. This has been Q's on the Move, and we've been focusing on Black boys reading and the importance to our community. Thank you, and God bless.
Good night.